Is my mic working? Can you hear me in the back? Got to make sure my whole audience can hear.
When you are ready, you tell me go.
So do I get to actually speak to the first one before you click it? Because I'd like to introduce, but I won't speak for 5 minutes, I promise.
You have 15 seconds.
Okay, all right. So in the spirit of transparency, I'd like to talk about some mistakes I've made. I want to talk about a false start, I want to talk about a dead end, I want to talk about a slow start. And then I'll tell you why I'm doing this. Okay, so life after MAPP, I made a lot of mistakes. And fortunately for you, I only have 5 minutes, so I can't tell you about all of them. But I did try to pick out ones that I thought would resonate, that at least one other person in the room had probably already made the same mistake, so that will be at least a little bit shared. So my first venture after IBM was to take positive psychology back to my big corporation. I worked for IBM at the time. I'd been working there 24 years. I had a huge network of people, and I used positive psychology in all kinds of different ways, including some direct team building experiences. I had this idea that teams disperse, and so that this would be like blowing dandelion seeds out into the corporation, and I would, you know how your fields grow up with dandelions? That would happen in IBM. What I failed to keep in mind was that my network was still a pretty small part of the whole IBM network, and so I blew a lot of seeds, but they didn't go all that far. And eventually people started thinking, you know, we're paying her to be an engineer, she really ought to be doing engineering instead of culture building. And so when the time came for the next layoff, I got a pink slip. I also got a paper out of it, so I'm not going to say this was a complete mistake, but it was, you know, at least there I was, no longer one of 300,000, I was now one of one, which, let me tell you, after 24 years was a big transition. So my next mistake was to pay a large chunk of change to a marketing expert who was going to teach me how to market. He had the pitch that said, I have a 6-figure income and I spend 2 or 3 days a week skiing. It didn't work out that way for me. And so trying to make sense of this, I remember Danny Kahneman saying, people who succeed put too much stress on the things that they did and not enough stress on the accidentals that can't be recreated. So as a result of that, I know there are no cookbooks for success, and I don't believe anybody else's big ideas, and I don't make big claims myself. So one big lesson learned. So I get to take a breath. So let me make a small transition here. I got to the point in the last 2 years where I started thinking of these not as mistakes, but as experiments. And one thing about experiments is they don't all have to work. So you can try things, and you know, if they don't work, then what? So this is my slow start. I had the idea about 4 years ago of starting some writers' workshops. And I had to have my husband take this picture of me sitting on my hands. I was too afraid to start. I love working with writers. Finally, with the help of Jan Stanley, with the help of, of other people, I finally took my courage in my hands and started them, and I'm having an absolute ball. And they're working out well, I think, for some of the people who are participating in them. And so it's a matter here, I think, why didn't I start 3 years ago? Why did I take so long? So this is a picture of us having a writer's workshop. We do it so that we can see each other, and great conversation happens, and I'll love to talk about it more this afternoon. So now you're wondering, okay, why is she telling us all about her mistakes? I look around at you, and I am in awe. I am awed by your brilliance. I'm awed by the ideas that you come up. I think that you are a lovely crowd of peacocks with wonderful, you can see there's a lot of beauty here. But sometimes that can make me feel sort of small, gray, and insignificant. And I had this idea that if we could get together today and not just talk about the things that we were good at and that we'd succeeded at, but also the things we tried that didn't work, that maybe we'd be able to help each other out more. I know this works because, does that mean, oh, okay. I know this works because we did this at a MAPP gathering. This was the West Virginia gathering. We got together and we shared not only the things that we'd succeeded at, but also the things that we were afraid to try, the things we wanted to do, the things we were afraid of. And out of this have come many forms of help. I don't have time to mention them all to you. Tom helped me get my nerve together to work on things. David Paulet knew that Caroline wanted to give TED Talks, And so he brought her name up with some TED organizers. Jan helped me get off the ground. I've helped Sandy get started with coaching. There's this network of help that's happened out of this sharing of things that we were insecure about. So I got 2 slides left. Let me end with the first thing I want to say, which is don't feel like you failed MAPP if you run into some suffering in your life, if you make mistakes, if things don't work, or even if things happen in your life. You don't get a get out of suffering free card. And then sow your seeds widely. Do all kinds of things because you never know. Some will fall on stony ground, some the birds will eat, but some will fall on fertile ground and grow and bloom in ways that you can't imagine, and you may not even know. Thank you.
Wow. What a great way to start. Okay, so you guys have 5 minutes to ask Kathryn any questions that you want. Throw up your hand. I'll repeat your question, so try to keep it short. Yes, Patrick. How did you come in and decide upon helping writers? Is that? Yes.
Oh, what a lovely question. First of all, I like to write. Second, I've been involved in Positive Psychology News Daily since it started back in 2007. So I've edited and worked with about 1,000 articles there, and worked with authors in trying to take the articles from, some of them are almost perfect when they arrive, some of them need a little work or whatever, and I thought, I actually don't want to write a book myself. I feel like, the world doesn't need my book, but I love to be part of the whole process of writing. So being able to be sort of in a serving and coaching position makes it possible for me to make writing happen and to be involved in writing without necessarily putting my own story out there.
Next question. Yeah. Once you decided to do the writing workshops, how did you get started?
Well, I used the Facebook group for starters. I put out the statement. Well, no, the very first thing I did was when I really started acting was to call up Jan Stanley and say, is this a crazy idea? Would anybody ever want to do this? And she said, I'll sign up right now. I've been in writers' workshops before. I know they're really helpful, and they are. And then I just put the word out there. I mentioned it at IPA to Conrad, and he said, oh, I'll pay you. I'll start rounding people up for you. So once I mentioned it to a few people, but the Facebook group, I think, was largely the way of, and part of what you got to do is be willing to put it out there, and if it doesn't work, in fact, this is a statement I missed in my pitch, I wanted to make the point that it's really liberating to stop thinking of things as mistakes and to think of them as experiments, because really, if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means, well, the time was not right, all those accidental things. It isn't, so anyway, it makes it easier to deal with. That's...
I feel like Marty would be proud about that one. Personal, pervasive, and permanent. What else? Yeah. How did you get so sexy, Kathryn Britton?
Well, I got a little coaching from my roommate this morning. Besides, I've watched people around here, some of the peacocks in the room. I mean, I look at you and I think, well, I may feel gray and insignificant, but I could put on a little color. I could try it out.
And on that note, thank you so much, Kathryn.
Okay.